And today I'm back with a brand new Doctor Who news video. Today is a little bit different. We're not talking about Doctor Who Series 13, Revolution of the Daleks, although I do hope we get some news or a trailer or a poster or literally anything anytime soon would be brilliant. Thank you, BBC. But today we're talking about something a little bit different, a bit more classic, if you will. We're talking about the animated Doctor Who stories. The Mirror have published an article today claiming from an inside source that they have, well, revealed here the next two Doctor Who stories to be animated. So I thought first we're going to talk about the sort of history of missing episodes and animations and all that sort of thing, as well as my thoughts on them, talking about the Mirror's actual article itself, and talking about whether the stories that they've mentioned are likely at all to happen, and really how true is this article, can we get excited yet, can we not, etc. So yeah, we're going to start with that. So as many of you may be aware, Doctor Who and the BBC in the 60s and 70s was a bit of a strange relationship. The BBC wanted a free archive space, so what they do is they just get rid of old tapes and old bits of film. They didn't have DVDs or videotapes back then. They didn't have this sort of idea to publish any of the Doctor Who stories or any stories of other TV shows from the time, so they just got rid of them. They just got rid of them and burnt them or whatever. And now we're in an age where we want access to all this stuff, we want to go back and watch it, we want to have a complete collection, but we can't because there's quite a few missing stories. I think there was about 97 in total that went missing or were wiped or anything like that, some of which have been found yet again from different countries and all that sort of thing, but some of them haven't. And as time goes on, the chance of them being restored, even if they do get found in like 10 years time or something, like bits of film of episodes here and there, the likelihood of it still there remaining like intact is getting lower and lower and lower. The likelihood of it showing up and being damaged is much higher now, unfortunately. However, you may be aware that the audio for all of these stories still exists separately from the actual visuals, meaning that people can make animations. Fans have tried to do their bits and bats here and there, but the BBC have now started employing actual animation companies to do animated versions of these stories, and they were a success. 2 episodes of The Reign of Terror have been animated, episode 4 of The 10th Planet has been animated, more recently Power of the Daleks, the Macra Terror and the Faceless Ones were animated. The Moon-based episodes 1 and 3 were animated, as was episode 1 of The Wheel in Space, episodes 1 and 4 of The Invasion, and up and coming, all 6 episodes of Fury from the Deep, which is really, really bloody exciting. I'm so excited that the animation teams are still powering through. The possibility that we could have a complete Doctor Who collection for the first time ever since the show started is really exciting. To be able to have all of them from beginning all the way on the An Earthly Child to whatever we are in series 12 or 13 or 14 by that point in New Who, it's very exciting to be able to have the possibility of owning all of Doctor Who or being able to watch all of Doctor Who, whether that be on streaming, DVD, etc. And we know that Fury from the Deep is on its way to coming out, and we know that there's about 2 animated stories a year with 2 separate animation companies working on it, but then the big question is what comes next? Which episodes and stories do we think are going to be next? And then we come to our article from The Mirror, an article written by the Mirror's TV editor, Nicola Methven. Nicola Methven may not be a name that you recognise, but she is very well known for coming up with some very good sources and very accurate sources for Doctor Who in recent years. Off the top of my head, I can think of Bradley Walsh's casting announcement being broke by The Mirror before it was officially announced, Daleks being in Resolution, I think it was, the 2018 festive special, Mary Shelley and the Cybermen being in Series 12, and an episode in Series 12 being about plastic in the ocean. That's 4 off the top of my head. I'm sure there's many more, but The Mirror, Nicola and Doctor Who scoops have always kind of been quite accurate in recent years. Not all the time, but since Jodie Whittaker's era, they've been quite on the money with a lot of their predictions and a lot of their sort of reports. So I thought I would talk about this one and sort of talk about if it is possible and if this looks to be likely in terms of the episodes that they've chosen. The article basically says 2 lost Doctor Who stories from the 1960s are being revived in animated form. Original tapes from 1967's Evil of the Daleks and The Abominable Snowmen, starring Patrick Troughton as the second Time Lord, were wiped by the BBC. No copies have been found, so the BBC has commissioned animation teams to complete the story using soundtracks and recordings and photos. 1 episode of Evil of the Daleks still remains, and 1 episode of The Abominable Snowmen still remains, both of which being episode 2 of their respective stories. Evil of the Daleks is a 7-part Dalek Emperor, big story, kind of fun stuff, and The Abominable Snowmen is a 6-part story about the Great Intelligence and the Yeti. Both very kind of big stories for Doctor Who villains, as well as Doctor Who history and Doctor Who fans as well, ones that fans have wanted and probably are sort of quite excited for. But let's talk about the possibility if that's actually going to be a thing. So we know there's 2 animation companies working on animated Doctor Who. One animation company worked on Power of the Daleks, the Macra Terror, and the Faceless Ones. The other company, who's just started working with the BBC, have only done Fury from the Deep. One animation company has basically covered season 4, and one has covered season 5. Now there's lots of different stories that haven't been animated yet. Marco Polo, The Crusade, Galaxy 4, The Mythmakers, Dalek Master Plan, The Massacre, Celestial Toymaker, The Savages, The Smugglers, The Highlanders, The Underwater Menace, The Evil of the Daleks, The Abominable Snowman, The Web of Fear Episode 3, The Wheel in Space, and The Space Pirates all have missing stories that haven't yet been animated. However, here's how I'm going to narrow it down. So we're going to assume that because it's easier, they'll have assets of Patrick Troughton and Patrick Troughton's companions, that they're not going to go directly for William Hartnell anytime soon. So let's take off all the Hartnell stories, and we're left with the Highlanders, the Underwater Menace, Evil of the Daleks, the Abominable Snowman, Web of Fear Part 3, the Wheel in Space, and the Space Pirates. Season 4 seems to be taking a little bit of priority with one production team. They're going with the Macra Terror, the Faceless Ones. So they have the Highlanders, the Underwater Menace, and Evil of the Daleks to choose from in Season 4. And the other animation team who's currently working on Fury from the Deep is doing Season 5, and that would mean they have the Abominable Snowmen, the Web of Fear Part 3, and the Wheel in Space. They're probably not going to do the Web of Fear Part 3, as it's already been released as a DVD with telesnaps, so maybe that'll be something that they fill in the gaps for maybe the collection box set if they ever finish that season. So basically they're picking between the Wheel in Space and the Abominable Snowmen. The Wheel in Space, Episode 1, has been animated by the production team who are currently working on Season 4, so it's likely that that might have already been in motion and is more of a work in progress. So that means it's the most likely that the production team working on Fury from the Deep are going to go for Abominable Snowmen next, if they're going to go for the whole season and sort of have a matching style. Looking at the box art from the Faceless Ones, and even just the animation of the Faceless Ones, and the box art from Fury from the Deep, you can see it looks to be a very different style of animation, like the character models look different, etc. So it's safe to assume that it would be easier to have a consistent animation style throughout each season. You wouldn't have the animation companies sort of swapping over. Fury from the Deep and the Abominable Snowmen could be done by the same production company, whereas Evil of the Daleks, Macra Terror, and the Faceless Ones could be done by the other. It's not really clear. They could also pick the Highlanders, the Underwater Menace, and basically any other of the missing stories. However, this sort of scoop seems very likely. They seem like very likely stories to go to. They're both big fan favourites. The last 2 stories we've had, the Faceless Ones and Fury from the Deep, neither of those have had big, famous Doctor Who monsters in them, whereas the Abominable Snowmen with the Yeti and the Great Intelligence, and Evil of the Daleks with the Daleks and the Emperor Dalek, the big famous Emperor Dalek that all the fans seem to be knowing and loving at the moment, especially with the kits coming out that people are building. It's quite an exciting prospect, and it looks to be quite likely. If this is the case, I'm very excited to see where this goes. I'd be very excited to watch these stories and sort of just break it down a little bit, and just to watch these stories would be great. I've always had a sort of moderate appeal for Evil of the Daleks, so to be able to watch that would be great. I remember when I did an interview with Nicholas Briggs, he talked about Evil of the Daleks and how it's the one story he'd really want to be found, and obviously, like, you know, even for people like Nicholas Briggs, it's still in their minds as a fan, as a story that they want to see. So
is that they said, oh, that new episode, an old episode of Doctor Who has come back. I said, if it's not Evil of the Daleks, I'm not interested. Because I remember Evil of the Daleks very well, which was intended at the time to be the final ever Dalek story with Patrick Troughton. But I remember seeing it because it was the first Doctor Who story, I think, to be repeated in its entirety. And I remember when they repeated it, I remember as a youngster thinking, oh, I've seen this one before. Oh, brilliant, it's that one again. And so, yeah. I suppose I have to say that's a favourite one of mine, because I would just love to see it again. I mean, it sounds really over emotional.
Yeah, it's definitely a big one, and I really am crossing my fingers that that is the case. But we'll have to wait and see. This could be the 2021 slate for Doctor Who animations, meaning that we'd only be left with only like 1, 2, 3, 4.5 stories of Troughton left to be animated before like his entire era is complete, which is insane to think about. Meaning by 2023 we could have all of Troughton's stories on DVD available to watch. Just how amazing is that? That's really, really bloody cool. And then we can start focusing on Hartnell, and then we realise we're in for a hell of a few years of rides there, because there's a lot of stories. But yeah, that's my thoughts. That's where I think it's going to go. I'm really excited if this is the case, but obviously take it with a pinch of salt. It is the Mirror, but they do have a bit of a good track record, so I'm being positively optimistic about this one, and we'll have to just wait and see. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment below for any more suggestions in the future, subscribe with notifications on if you haven't already. I'm working on a video about the Lumiette coming very soon, so that should be quite interesting. It's a bit like the complete history videos that I did for the Doctor and the Master, but it's a bit of a sort of shorter, more sort of quick style than that. So, but it's the same sort of thing, really, talking about the history of a character, so if that is your cup of tea, stay tuned for that. I've also got a Patreon page for early access content, name in my descriptions, exclusive Discord server, etc. And I've also got a Twitter and Instagram linked below as well, so you can go and check that out for the latest news and reviews. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.